So a Wall Street insider has just dropped a new report predicting $2.4 million Bitcoin by 2030. That's right. That is literally 4 years away. But guess what else came out this week? So not only do we have this new report with all of the new price predictions we're going to be crunching, but let's not forget the Journal for Financial Risk Management published the report on screen that we're going to be looking at today just last week, predicting not only a $1 million Bitcoin by 2027, but they even think we're going to hit $5 million by 2031. So today I want to be looking at what exactly do these massive firms know that we don't? And we're going to be doing all of that by starting with the Wall Street insider by the name of Cathie Wood. And let's listen to her more recent interview before she changed her mind and increased her Bitcoin bull case by 30%, because what she says in this interview from just a month ago on CNBC might give us some clues as to why she's recently changed her mind. Let's get into this.
2030, we have a 2030 target. In our base case, it's around $650,000. In our bull case, it's between $1 and $1.5 million. Now, remember, we were the first public asset manager to gain exposure to Bitcoin in 2015 at $250. And we still, at 90,000, I think we have a long way to go. Why? Well, first of all, we're getting regulatory relief here. And I think that's one of the most important things coming out of this administration. We will get regulatory relief on all kinds of innovation, including healthcare. So the other thing is we're looking at Bitcoin now being viewed as a new asset class. It's not just a global monetary system. It's a new asset class. And what that means is institutions and asset allocators generally are saying, wait a minute, this asset is behaving differently from all of our other assets. We need to include. So I think that's the next big move. And and if you look at years where the Bitcoin has halved and the inflation rate has gone now down to 0.9, it's usually had a nice big move.
All right. So Bitcoin is a new asset class. Cathie Wood makes some really interesting points in that interview that she dropped a month or two ago. But she kind of hinted at what's recently changed if we get regulatory clarity from America. So let's break down her old reports. Of course, this is her old report. Everybody's seen these reports. They're hard to forget because they are very colorful, very distinctive. But you can see her old bull case for Bitcoin. The tallest big bar on this chart was $1.48 million. And her bear case previously was $250,000. But things have kind of changed here just a little bit. Okay, things have really changed here, especially when we jump on over to Cathie Wood's new report. So here it is. This is the brand new article I have for you guys. If we zoom this chart out just a little bit, I want to show you guys a couple of the takeaways. That's not the chart I want to show you, but here it is. Ark Invest ups its 2030 Bitcoin bull case to $2.4 million per coin. Okay, we can see the new bear and base cases were bumped up from $700,000 and $710,000 from their February 11th projections. So things have changed. Cathie Wood now believes that her bear case for Bitcoin is $500,000. Look at that chart on the left-hand side of the image I've got for you. Cathie Wood, not quite a billionaire, but a multi-hundred millionaire, now believes her bear case for Bitcoin is $500,000 per coin by 2030. That's just 5 years away. This is her bear case. I mean, that's a lazy 5x if you start investing into Bitcoin today. Not too shabby, but I'm more interested in the bull case. Because again, even if these Wall Street insiders and people who have like public companies, like Cathie Wood has Ark Invest and multiple different ETFs, typically she has to be slightly more on the conservative side when she's talking on national news, publishing these reports. She doesn't necessarily want to publish what she actually thinks. That's like me. I tell you guys, look, Bitcoin's going to be worth tens of millions, maybe $100 million per coin. I talk about that a lot online, but that's not really what I actually think. I actually think Bitcoin's going to hit far more bullish prices than that. But sometimes it just takes more than a 30-minute video for me to convince you of my logic for just how bullish I am. Cathie Wood and these other billionaires, I think they're similar in some regards. I need to be careful what I say on a live stream, but I think they have to be more conservative in the public sphere. And I think what you're looking at right now is incredibly conservative numbers, incredibly conservative figures, even though Cathie Wood's new base case is $1.2 million. Think about that for a minute. That's the base case. I mean, that's pretty bullish. If you think about it for a minute, for what, $1.2 million is the new base case by 2030. That's really not that far away. That's really increasing a lot. And again, let's not forget Cathie Wood. This is a photo of young Cathie Wood, might I add. But young Cathie Wood here has 25% of her net worth in Bitcoin. Just another person with swaths of capital investing huge amounts of their portfolio into Bitcoin. Now, again, let's look at some of the reasons that the guys over at Ark Invest have upped their Bitcoin allocations and their Bitcoin price predictions. Nation state and corporate Bitcoin treasury strategies and Bitcoin financial services were factored into Ark's Bitcoin price projections. So corporate Bitcoin treasury strategies. We are going to be talking a lot about this today. Obviously, a few of those in the more recent company being launched, headed up by Howard Lutnick and Jack Mallers. This company's name, of course, is 21. It's massive. It's pretty big. And they're launching with 42,000 Bitcoin, mind you. We are going to be talking about that in a minute. But something else that Ark Invest pointed to that's kind of a consideration for why things have changed a little bit is the institutional investment contributes the most to our bull case. So they're actually predicting Bitcoin's going to achieve a 6.5% penetration rate, I love that word, into the $200 trillion financial market in a best case scenario. That's pretty big. That's pretty interesting. If we really make this chart as big as possible, that is the purple sliver. So again, each of these slivers on these bar charts is representing a different capital market that Bitcoin can capture. So they're predicting if Bitcoin can get just 6% of the institutional investment market, that alone takes Bitcoin to above $1 million. That's what the purple on this bar chart is representing. Bitcoin just gets 6% of that $200 trillion market. It contributes to a massive move for Bitcoin. The same can be said for the digital gold thesis. You can see the big yellow sliver on this chart makes up a big chunk for why, and a big reason for why Bitcoin could go to $2.4 million a coin. Again, we can see here in the report, Bitcoin's acceptance as digital gold was also a major contributor to the lofty price estimate. I don't think it's that lofty, but Ark Invest believes that if it captures 60% of gold's $18 trillion market cap, then all of a sudden we would be looking at a lot of extra trillions of dollars coming for Bitcoin. A lot of extra trillions of dollars. Again, when Bitcoin's at a $2.4 million price tag, that would represent a Bitcoin price at a market cap, mind you, being something like $25 trillion. A lot of people be thinking, oh, $25 trillion, that's a lot. It's not. Because again, Bitcoin has the multiplier effect, which again is very rare and unique to Bitcoin. Most other assets simply don't have that. But again, a big reason for why Ark Invest is talking about these really bullish numbers for Bitcoin has to do with something else I do want to talk about today that I think is really interesting. That, of course, is the supply suffocation. So I find this interesting because this is the second report released in the past week that specifically mentions the supply suffocation. So we can see here the report from the Journal of Financial Risk Management. They published this report around a week and a half ago. We did cover a video on this, so we're not going to completely rehash this video for you guys. But they essentially said, look, $1 million Bitcoin by 2027. And based upon different scenarios, we can't rule out Bitcoin hitting $5 million by 2031. Now, again, it's like a 50-page report, so I don't get the time to rehash all of the maths that they ran in this report. But as you can see, there's a whole bunch of fancy maths. There's a whole bunch of fancy calculations and equations and projections and assumptions. But I really like this report a lot, as I highlighted to you guys last week, because it actually accounts for the fact that Bitcoin has changed. Bitcoin is not the same asset in 2025 that it was in 2015 or 16 or even 2018 or 2019. And this report directly pointed shade at these ideas like stock to flow. Said, well, you know, different data set now. We're now seeing a supply suffocation. It looked at power law models and it said, yeah, well, you know what? Doesn't really account for the fact we have supply suffocations. They looked at all of these fancy things called quantitative models, supply and demand equilibrium models. I love this report because it was all encompassing. It did look at a little bit of everything. And again, its synopsis or its summary, it's a pretty bullish one. You can see the boys at Simply Bitcoin summarized that nicely with this tweet. A peer-reviewed study forecasts $1 million Bitcoin by 2027 and up to $5 million Bitcoin by 2031. So these squiggly lines on the charts is looking at what would happen hypothetically to the Bitcoin price based upon there being 1,000 Bitcoin withdrawn from the exchanges every day. So it's looking at the data of what's actually happening today. And it's saying, look, if we continue to see the supply suffocation, I love this article because it says, what does the world look like in 5 years if this supply suffocation continues? It actually accounts for the fact that the data's changed. It actually accounts for the fact that we are witnessing a historic supply suffocation on exchanges right now. I mean, you guys can see it very clearly. We've seen 900,000 Bitcoin leave the exchanges over the past 2.5 years alone since 2022. 900,000. That's nearly 1 million coins. It's redonk. That is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Okay? And I'm trying to find you a chart that really puts this into a little bit more perspective for you guys, but it's very rare that we see this in bull runs. It's incredibly rare that we do see this in bull runs. Yes, we've seen this in short amounts of time, but we have never seen this persist for 5 years consistently. Oh, here's the chart. Here's the chart. This is the one I want to show you guys. So typically in bear markets, you see the coins on exchange rise. Look at 2015 and 2018. But what changed in 2022? Coins were leaving the exchanges. Why? That is the $2.1 trillion question I think everybody should be asking themselves today, as Bitcoin is just kind of chopping around here at just a tad under 100,000 big ones a coin. Let's check in on the price of Bitcoin. Let's see where we're at. We are at right now 94,000 big ones at the time of recording. Not bad. That's a couple of chunks of chump change, so to say. That's a mouthful. That is a mouthful. But again, I think we're seeing some really interesting things in the Bitcoin space, as well as the live chat. It always cracks me up from time to time. I might swivel back to the live chat here in a moment. But while I am on this topic of supply suffocation, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about supply suffocation in a little bit more detail, because I've been seeing some things that I think is really interesting here. So not only do we have Michael Saylor buying more Bitcoin this week, I believe he bought just a lazy another $1.5 billion of Bitcoin today. Pretty crazy when you think about that. We have billionaires just buying $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. But you know what else I saw this week? We have a new whale public company who just launched with 42,000 Bitcoin, making them the third largest public corporate in the Bitcoin space of all time. That's right. I have a list of 180 public companies in front of me, but Jack Mallers and Howard Lutnick, the man responsible and in charge of America's new sovereign wealth fund, just launched a brand new company. And I just want to play you a little video of what one of their co-founders thinks about Bitcoin and their plan to accumulate an unlimited amount of Bitcoin. This, of course, is Jack Mallers. Let's listen to Jack.
And that stock is trading in live today. If it's successfully merged upon closing, it will be XXI. We do intend to raise as much capital as we possibly can to acquire Bitcoin. Again, my one rule to my shareholders is it will be accretive. Our Bitcoin per share will grow. We will never have Bitcoin per share negative. At least that's our intent. Our intent is to make sure that when you're a shareholder of 21, that you're getting wealthier in Bitcoin terms. And that's my job as a CEO to deliver that. So we plan on raising capital in all different type of sectors and markets and really blending Bitcoin and incorporating it in the traditional financial system to deliver a powerful equity to the public markets for Bitcoiners.
Is that the selling point versus ETFs? Because you came up with...
Well, we're going to talk about Larry Fink and ETFs here in a minute, but I want to run some quick maths with you guys because I think it is very important. A lot of people are looking at this announcement and I don't think they're bullish enough on Bitcoin. I don't think they've ran the maths and ran the numbers, and they don't quite grasp how big of an announcement this one is, not only because Tether, Howard Lutnick, and Jack Mallers have teamed up to create this company called 21. We're going to talk about the interesting connections here in a minute, but I want to talk about the supply suffocation side of things here for a minute. So this chart here shows that there's 2.5 million Bitcoin on exchanges today. These guys have launched, that's right, they have launched with 42,000 Bitcoin. Have a look at this article headline. Cantor Fitzgerald, SoftBank, and Tether joined hands to launch a company with 42,000 Bitcoin. That makes them the third largest public corporation in history existing today. And again, let's do some maths. How many companies can copy what these guys have done? Well, there's 2.5 million Bitcoin on exchanges. Let's divide this puppy by 42,000. This is the size of the Bitcoin stack that Jack Mallers has accumulated for these guys. We hit equals. It's backwards. It's a little bit reversed, but it's 59 companies. Only 59 companies can do what Jack Mallers just did. And again, we've been speculating on the channel for a long time. Michael Saylor holds 500,000 Bitcoin. We do know that publicly there's 180 other public corporations with Bitcoin on the balance sheet. We've been speculating. We've been putting our tinfoil hats on here for a while saying, look, there's some other billionaires secretly stacking Bitcoin. And that's exactly what this new announcement proves. Billionaires have been secretly stacking Bitcoin. And they're going to do things like this. They're going to say, okay, hey, we're going to be creating a public company and we're launching with 42,000 Bitcoin. We don't care that that's 80 days of the Bitcoin supply gone. That's right. Every single day, 450 Bitcoin are mined. So if you extrapolate that out, my quick maths off the top of my head says that them launching with 42,000 Bitcoin, that's something like 88 or 89 days worth of supply gone, gonzo. It's pretty bullish. That's very bullish. Whales place huge amounts of BTC on exchanges with no intent to sell. This is also true. So a lot of the Bitcoin on exchanges today, great point, McLovin. A lot of the Bitcoin on exchanges today, it's purely there because billionaires are just trying to scare the retail plebs. They're trying to scare the new people into selling their Bitcoin. This is why I always like to zoom out and say, look, let's take a look at the 5-year chart here. I mean, the trend, it's your friend. When you really zoom out, we can see pretty clearly we're in a 5-year downtrend. And I think, yeah, we're going to see some volatility on this trend. But the trend is your friend, and prepare yourselves for some crazy things to be happening here. Because if this trend continues, I mean, we got no Bitcoin on exchanges in how long? 4 years. That's the maths. That's simply what the maths points to. If the past 5 years of data just continues forward into the future. And again, I'm trying to make the case for you guys today that this trend is actually accelerating. I know, sounds crazy. Have a look at the new whales in pink here on this chart. Doesn't that look like a parabola? That looks like an accelerating trend to me. It does look as if whales are accumulating new Bitcoin at absolutely unprecedented rates. This trend just doesn't really look like it's slowing down at all, which is pretty crazy. And I think most people are just not accustomed to do what Shinku here in the chat says, and that is never sell. Look, these guys like Michael Saylor, they are never selling. That's not debatable. It's not up for debate. Michael Saylor is never selling his Bitcoin. He said that so many times. I mean, the dude is squatting on $52 billion worth of Bitcoin today at the time of recording. Boy, I nearly read out a comment in the chat that would get me and all of us kicked off YouTube. Oh, I love it. It's electric. So again, I think now that we have these companies like Cantor Fitzgerald entering the space in such a, let's call it what it is, an aggressive way, I think this is something to be paying very close attention to. Something else to be paying very close attention to, we will come back to Michael Saylor here in a minute. But check this out. 21, this is the company of Jack Mallers, Tether, and Cantor Fitzgerald, will be majority owned by Tether, the world's largest stablecoin issuer. It will be minority owned by multinational investment management firm SoftBank. A little bit interesting, don't you think? Co-founder and CEO Jack Mallers will lead the firm. And he said, we're not here to beat the market. We're here to build a new one. A public stock built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. And what I think is super interesting as well is the reasoning and the comparisons floating around here on Twitter. Now, again, I would love to try to find one of these comparisons. Here we go. This is the one. So this is what 21 is posting publicly. They're comparing themselves to Strategy on the left-hand side of this little pie chart and 21 on the right-hand side. So they are saying they are more of a pure play Bitcoin exposure. They're saying they're 100% Bitcoin native in their operations. They're saying they don't own any current debt. Debt collateralization is not an issue. Insider ownership. Michael does own a lot of MSTR, but yes, he doesn't own all of it. Purpose-built KPIs. 21 is potentially a superior vehicle for investors seeking capital-efficient Bitcoin exposure. Will they become the next MicroStrategy? Can 21 become the next MicroStrategy? Again, we've talked a lot about bullish price predictions today. I might have a little bit more of a price prediction to run by you guys here in a moment. But Cathie Wood just predicted a $2.4 million Bitcoin price. What would MicroStrategy be worth if Cathie Wood's right and Bitcoin does hit $2.4 million within the next 4 years? Well, today we're going to be running the numbers because I have an Excel spreadsheet for you guys that we're going to be having a look at. We're going to be crunching the numbers, and we're also going to be taking a look at the other public companies who are aggressively accumulating Bitcoin today to see whether they can copy MicroStrategy. Because I mean, when we run the numbers, we'll see a lot of other public companies are probably going to want to do the same. So let's have a look here. We know today MicroStrategy's market cap is $98.3 billion. Pretty crazy. They, right now, hold $52 billion of capital on their balance sheet, and they're sitting on 553,000 Bitcoin. Michael Saylor's got all the maths here, dating every single one of his purchases. But let's have a look here. So if they hold $52 billion of Bitcoin and their market cap is $98 billion, this means right now, MicroStrategy has something like a 2x multiple on top of its assets that it's hold. This is how it's valued in the public markets. So now let's jump on over here and just, again, pop on our tinfoil hats here and let's get a little bit bullish. Let's say, all right, if Bitcoin does actually hit $1 million per coin, what's going to happen? Well, I'm glad you asked. If Bitcoin hits $1 million, let's assume MicroStrategy holds the same amount of Bitcoin, 553,000 Bitcoin. So if we get a 10x in the price of Bitcoin, MicroStrategy's Bitcoin is going to be worth $500 billion. Now, what does this mean? Well, let's be conservative again, all right? Let's be conservative. Let's not get too crazy here. Let's just assume that MicroStrategy has the same 2x multiplier on top of its net asset values, considering its net assets would be valued at $500 billion with a 2x multiple, MicroStrategy would have $1 trillion market cap. That's with Bitcoin just at $1 million per coin. This would put it in the top 10 largest companies in the entire world. We can see here, Apple's got a $3.5 trillion market cap, Nvidia's got a 3.1, Microsoft's got a 3.1, Alphabet 2.1, Amazon 1.8. MicroStrategy would be a top 10 company in the entire world. But let's jump back on over here. I just like to use the 1 million number because it's a little bit easier for people to conceptualize. It's easy for people to conceptualize Bitcoin 10xing, going from 100K to $1 million. But now let's get a little bit funky. Now let's imagine Bitcoin does a 24x and Cathie Wood is correct. Okay, again, the big news is that Cathie Wood has increased her Bitcoin price prediction to $2.4 million. That's her new bull case by 2030. I know, it's crazy. Don't get me wrong. It's bullish. It's very bullish. But let's assume that's correct. Where does Bitcoin go? Where's MicroStrategy go? So if MicroStrategy doesn't accumulate any Bitcoin over the next 5 years, it's 553,000 Bitcoin that it holds on its balance sheet today. That's right, 553,000 Bitcoin on its balance sheet today. That would be worth $1.25 trillion. Now again, let's just assume the same conservative 2x multiplier that we're seeing today on MicroStrategy's Bitcoin stack. MicroStrategy would be worth $2.5 trillion. That would put it as the 4th largest company in the entire world, which is bullish, but it's not nearly as bullish as I want to get with you guys today, because I want to get even more bullish. Because there's this chart that was floating around a little while ago. This is called a MicroStrategy bull cycle power adjusted MNAV multiplier. Now, don't get me wrong. It's a mouthful. I get that. It is a mouthful. Now, this particular metric it's saying a simple thing. What it's saying is, okay, Bitcoin sees a little bit of a multiplier effect in bull markets. So does MicroStrategy. It takes less capital to really move Bitcoin in a big way in these bull markets. That's not a huge assumption. Okay, I mean, we do know that this fluctuates a lot. I'm trying to find you the raw data that I do have, because there's a chart that actually tracks how this changes. So this chart is called the MSTR NAV multiplier versus the Bitcoin price. And this does change. You can see the NAV premium. It's scaled 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The higher those green dots are on that chart, the bigger the NAV premium. We can see that this does fluctuate. It's normal. It happens. So again, the really crazy uber bullish numbers we're going to be showing you here in a minute. It's based upon that number, the MNAV. So let's jump back on over to it. Now, as of Q4 2024, this specific projection believes that if Bitcoin hits $500,000 a coin, MicroStrategy could have an MNAV multiplier of 30x. And that could result in a MicroStrategy stock price of $15,000 per share. Let's have a look at how crazy that would look on a chart. Right now, I've pulled up the MicroStrategy chart. Right now, we're trading at $360 per coin. I mean, what? Wouldn't that just look crazy? This, if anything close to this plays out, this would look like the most craziest chart in all of finance. It would be, if this thing gets to $15,000 a share, that would be crazy. Absolutely crazy. Again, who remembers if there was a stock split that recently happened? Maybe there was. That's kind of making these numbers a little bit wonky. But I think, hey, if Bitcoin does go to 500,000 and 5x's, I think it's pretty clear that MicroStrategy is probably going to do more than that in regards to its potential returns. I mean, MicroStrategy, for example, it's twice as high as the 2021 peak right now. So we do know that MicroStrategy outperforms Bitcoin. This is kind of what it does. So again, where's MicroStrategy going to go? A lot higher. All Night Hider says, show me the data. Show me the data. And StatWise here says that Bitcoin is the 7th largest asset in the entire world, with only Google, Amazon, Nvidia, Microsoft, Apple, and gold ahead of it. Wouldn't it be, and again, this isn't a hypothetical because this is going to happen eventually, but eventually MicroStrategy and Bitcoin, like in the very near future, could be number 1 and number 2 on that list. Let's show you the chart that StatWise here in the chat is talking about. So this here is looking at the largest assets in the entire world. Again, there's 58,000 public companies. Bitcoin is already bigger than 99.9% of them. So here we have Bitcoin in the pink, number 7. About to jump over. So Bitcoin has a $1.87 trillion market cap. Amazon and Alphabet are both at $1.9 trillion market caps. A 10% pump in Bitcoin. And we take the 5th spot, the 5th biggest company in the entire world. Now again, this is like a $2 trillion battle. Amazon at 1.9, Alphabet at 1.9, Bitcoin at 1.87. Again, we're talking about MicroStrategy today. MicroStrategy would enter the chat, so to say, if Bitcoin hit $2.5 million a coin. If Bitcoin hit $2.5 million a coin, MicroStrategy is at $2.5 trillion of market cap, assuming a very bearish and conservative 2x multiplier. I think that's bullish. I think that's interesting. I think that's something a lot of people are not paying attention to. Again, why are all of these massive banks increasing their Bitcoin price predictions today? Why are they all coming out and getting aggressively more bullish on Bitcoin? That's a question we need to be asking ourselves. Because it just looks like it's all accelerating here. Because in the same week that Cathie Wood has upped her Bitcoin bull case to $2.4 million by 2030, a $1.1 trillion bank has also just confirmed they believe Bitcoin's going to hit an all-time high in the next 60 days. Of course, we're talking about Standard Chartered And they now think that Bitcoin's going to hit a new all-time high by the end of Q2 2024. That is literally days away. Why are all of these multi-trillion-dollar banks and billionaires so interested in Bitcoin and raising their Bitcoin price predictions? Is it because of the historic supply suffocation that we're seeing right now as coins are being absolutely ripped off the exchanges? And not only the exchanges, the OTC desks. This chart here, I ran some numbers over the weekend and I found that 1.5 million Bitcoin have been stripped from the exchanges in the past 3 years. Now, I always show you guys this chart, the Bitcoin on exchanges. Now, we know that 900,000 Bitcoins left the exchanges over the past 2 years, but this is a chart we don't talk about very often because it's hard to get reliable data on. This is the over-the-counter exchanges. This is how the big guys and the whales buy Bitcoin without moving the market so much, as opposed to them going straight to a Coinbase and smash buying $1 billion of Bitcoin. They kind of go through the back of the queue, so to say, and they go around the line, they skip the line, and they go to these OTC desks. And we can see here a similar trend. Look at the OTC desks. It spiked to an all-time high in the 2021 bull run, and it has been absolutely cratering like a rock since then. We can see that this number peaked at about 500,000 Bitcoin on the OTC desks in mid-2022. Today, that's down to about 140,000 coins. 85% of the OTC supply has vanished since 2022, and 35% of all of the Bitcoin on exchanges has vanished since 2022. So we really are witnessing a supply suffocation for the ages right now. I think a lot of people are kind of expecting the price of Bitcoin to be pumping aggressively while the supply on exchanges has been draining. I didn't think so. I think these big entities who are buying Bitcoin and stripping Bitcoin off the exchanges, these guys know how to not move the price. They have all of these fancy algorithms. Michael Saylor in 2020 said, look, I've developed this fancy little algorithmic bot that buys Bitcoin 1,000 times a day. He was saying this on interviews, public interviews in 2020. Do we really think nation states, people like Howard Lutnick in charge of America's sovereign wealth fund, don't also know the same strategies to accumulate Bitcoin silently? Do we really think new companies like 21 also are not aware of the same strategies to accumulate Bitcoin silently? I mean, just think about this company here, 21, launching with 42,000 Bitcoin. Kenneth Fitzgerald, SoftBank, and Tether. Do we really think they don't know some secret accumulation source? I think they do. I think they're well aware of how to buy Bitcoin secretly and silently, and in ways not to move the price of Bitcoin. Because again, at the end of the day, you don't necessarily want to move the price of Bitcoin until you've accumulated all the Bitcoin that you want to accumulate. Now, again, I think Standard Chartered's a little bit of a interesting cookie, because they've been making these incredibly bullish Bitcoin price predictions for a long time. They were one of the first Bitcoin bulls on the scene of the last bull run. I've got an article I want to show you. Let me just cough my guts up first. So we can see Standard Chartered boosts its 2024 Bitcoin forecast to $120,000 per coin. At the time, this was also considered crazy. This was mid-2023. Again, where was Bitcoin in mid-2023 when Standard Chartered was making these bullish Bitcoin price predictions? Well, let's take a look. Let's jump on over to the price of Bitcoin. We can see in mid-2023, Bitcoin was, wow, that feels like a lifetime ago. Bitcoin was literally at $28,000 a coin. This is why I always pay attention to what Standard Chartered says. Again, I think your track record is very important, not just in Bitcoin, but traditional media as well. And Standard Chartered, tell you what, they've got a pretty good track record when it comes to Bitcoin. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's a $120,000 prediction in 2024. And again, Bitcoin, technically, we nearly hit that. I mean, we got to $108,000 earlier this year. So they pretty much nailed that. I would give Standard Chartered that prediction. So it didn't quite hit 120K in 2024. But that blue line shows Bitcoin hitting $109,000 in January 2025. So we're 3 weeks late and $12,000 shy. But I think considering you make a prediction like that in mid-2023, I think that's pretty bullish. I think that's incredibly bullish. Well, McLovin opens up a really interesting point. So let's assume Standard Chartered is right, and we do continue seeing all of this bullishness in the price action of Bitcoin. What percentage of long-term holders will be selling their coins? Let's have a look at something really interesting because it does relate to what we're talking about today. So long-term holders have actually sold 1 million Bitcoin this year. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Wow, why isn't the price dumping? So this is kind of my thesis I've been doubling down on for a long time. A lot of the pushback I get from people who don't like the supply suffocation angle. Firstly, some people don't even think a supply suffocation is happening. Like I can show them all of these zoomed out 10-year charts saying, look, Bitcoin on exchanges, it's evaporating. 35% of all the Bitcoin on traditional exchanges, 85% of all the Bitcoin on OTC desks. Some people don't even buy that. I don't know why. People just think I'm sprouting hopium. I mean, that's the data. The data is public and it's all there. So firstly, there's two sets of people. Firstly, some people don't believe in the supply shock because they just, I don't know, just aren't paying attention. Okay, so there's the first set of people. Then there's a second type of person, and they're going to say, okay, yes, a supply shock is happening, but coins on exchanges will never hit zero because there will always be a seller. Now, look, I agree. There will always be a seller, and long-term holders will always sell their Bitcoin. As we can see, they've sold 1 million Bitcoin recently. Have a look at how dramatically they've sold. Have a look at all these charts. Crazy. This is a, what's that? A 18-month chart. Biggest spikes we've ever seen as Bitcoin popped its head above $70,000 and hit a new all-time high. Long-term holders typically always do this. But what's really different in the market this time is, yes, long-term holders are selling a lot of Bitcoin. Typically, these are the whales, typically. But coins on exchanges are still going down. Why? Well, because who's on the other side of the transaction buying the Bitcoin off the long-term holders? All of a sudden, there is a new participant in the market. It's the whales. It's the nation states. It's the billionaires. It's the nation state treasuries. Look at this. New whales is going exponentially higher at the same time that the old Bitcoin OGs are selling 1 million coins. The old Bitcoin OGs used to be considered the smart money. Used to be. Before 2020, yes, that is true. But there's a new participant in the market today. It's the whales, the pension funds. It's all the big guys. So McLovin brings up a great point. But yes, there will be long-term holders selling their Bitcoin. Always will be. But I think things are slightly different now. And again, that's all the data is there. All the data is there showing you the argument for why the long-term holders have been completely overwhelmed. They've just sold 1 million Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's still at an all-time high. Why? You have to ask yourself that why. My man Ted in the chat. Luke, who sent you the roses? Roses, where are the roses? Oh, yeah, hang on, let me find those. Oh. Where are they? Here we go. This is a present to the 776 of you guys watching today's stream. I got the roses here. I got the colorful roses. Yeah, what can I say? I just attract the romantic girls. They buy me the flowers, right? Dwight in the chat. I love Dwight. I'm watching The Office again right now. The Office is my favorite show. Yeah, if you are enjoying the show, there's 800 of you guys in here. Smash the like. We would appreciate that. Smash the like to encourage me to start a live stream on time. I was sorry again, guys. I was late once again. Arson noticed the flowers. I believe Arson is a keen observer. He also mentioned my nose tape. And when you've got a fat face like me, the nose tape helps you breathe a little bit better, so you don't snore all night. So I've been rocking the nose tape here. Trains you to breathe correctly, which is through your nose. Highly recommend people go get some. They're great. They're honestly great things, great products. The old nose strips. Now, again, speaking of great products, if you want to front run Michael Saylor and also actually participate in what I'm calling a historic supply suffocation, if you also want to drain the exchanges of Bitcoin, the OTC desks, which right now are down 85%, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. Again, if you want to participate in the OTC drainage, I'd encourage you guys to jump on over to the Bitcoin Well. They have a white glove concierge service for large Bitcoin transactions. These are over-the-counter transactions. So again, if you click on that little button I just clicked, it's going to bring up a calendar for you guys to book a call with a specialist at the Bitcoin Well. Again, they're my number one choice for a Bitcoin exchange that I believe you guys should be partnered up with. They help you not only take care of large over-the-counter transactions through their Bitcoin Well Infinity program. This is the one we're looking at right now. But you can also buy Bitcoin on the Bitcoin Well daily and in small amounts. You can DCA. You can even play the Bitcoin Wishing Well, which is the game we always show you guys on this stream that gives you free sats, and it gives you the chance to throw some tokens into the Wishing Well and even go into the draw to potentially win 1% of a Bitcoin. We always give sats away on these live streams from the Bitcoin Well. So I highly encourage you guys to check them out. And once you bought your Bitcoin, please look after your Bitcoin the way it should be looked after. I think the only way you guys should be storing your 12 or 24 words, it's not on paper, should be on these titanium plates you guys can get from Stampseed. They create the industry standard when it comes to Bitcoin backup storage and security. I have a little bit of a surprise for you guys. I wonder if you can hear me sneaking around the house right now, looking for some of my goodies. I got a ton of these puppies, but here's 3 of my favorites. These are clean ones for the live stream for you guys. These are the plates. This is what they look like. As you can hear, that's real titanium, baby. So again, if you are looking to level up your Bitcoin security, go and get your Bitcoin off the exchanges. Like we've been talking about today, the exchanges are being drained at a historic rate. And that's because people are backing up their Bitcoin the way they should be, which is good. We encourage this. So again, go get a hardware wallet, put your Bitcoin into your own custody, and then write down your 12 or 24 words onto titanium. Highly encourage you guys to do that. And let's encourage the 812 of you guys to get even more bullish. Because come on, Donnie Myers, 148K top this year. That's bearish. Come on, man. How about I give you guys a little bit of a Bitcoin well toss tomorrow? How about that? I actually am incredibly late for dinner once again. And I mean, True Ghost Reaper, we did show you some secret sauce of why a lot of these price predictions do actually come true eventually. We showed you the Standard Chartered price prediction, so let's stay patient for a couple of years. And with all that said, if we are staying patient for a couple of years, I'd encourage you guys to learn a little bit more about how Bitcoin can change your retirement. I recently filmed a video on that topic. I'm going to put a link to that one up on screen somewhere around there. Well, I said, I'll see you guys